I wonder, do you make time to listen for that still, small voice inside you? The voice that invites you to make a change, to strive a little more. The voice that urges you to more authenticity, that invites you into transformation. I believe that we all have such inner stirrings that give voice to the seeds of change waiting to burst forth and grow in and through us. I ask you during this meditation time to draw a little bit about your inner voice, considering where you hear it, how you hear it, how you respond to it. Is it a voice that calls for you to evolve? Or does it call for a revolution in the way you live and move and have your being on this earth? Does it ask you to say yes to life, to truth, to justice, to love? And what's your response? For the most part, most of us, we have a life that is pretty habitual, routine. For some of us, many of us perhaps, this is really comfortable. You know what's going to happen? You have times of joy and happiness, not unlike the creature on the island of habit. I'm certain that some of us didn't see anything problematic with the creature of habit's life. Eating the food he liked, going where he liked, talking to the creatures and plants he knew and liked. A life of no changes and no surprises, and no disturbances. Until a new little creature wandered onto the island. At first, the creature of habit, well, he was overjoyed to meet this new little creature. Then, over time, this creature disrupted things a little too much, causing that creature of habit confusion, discomfort. He even ate an orange that wasn't as good as a pineapple. And he didn't really like the lack of routine. I mean, the story, and we watched the story, by the end of it, the creature of habit had found some joy in these newfound ways of doing things with this new little creature. But I wondered, as you listened to the story, what did you think about it? Did you resonate with the feelings that you might experience when seeds of change make themselves known to you, perhaps through a new little creature in your life? Do you empathize, or did you empathize with the creature of habit when the new creature came to the island, feeling the disruption and the change? What value judgments can you make about life before this creature arrived on the island and after its arrival? I can tell you about my life. I love habit. I love routine. I love knowing what to expect. Going back 25 years, my life was habitual. I lived on the island of habit. I'd completed graduate school. I was working as a psychotherapist at a great clinic in Houston. I had friends and family around me. I spent time with them on a regular basis. You could predict my life to a high degree of accuracy. I knew what was going to happen every day, almost of every week. And I was happy as a crab under a rock. Then came that pesky inner voice calling me to transformation. I was the chair of the worship committee at Bay Area Unitarian Universalist Church in Clear Lake, Texas. One Friday night, I received a call from the president of the congregation, and he said that I would need to come up with something for Sunday's service, because the minister would not be preaching. Curious? Why? He said the minister had done something unethical and would no longer be serving our church effective immediately. In fact, he would be stripped of his ministerial fellowship credentials by the UUA and his counseling credentials by the state of Texas. Now, after that phone call, it affected me. Affect all of us, probably. The minister was a friend of mine. I knew him, and I knew how important all of this was to him. You know, his ministry, his counseling. And I realized that he would no longer be able to follow his vocation or his career. He'd lost everything that was meaningful to him. And so I stopped what I was doing before I even got to doing the whole setting up the worship, and I just sat for a moment. And this experience prompted within me a question. What if I suddenly lost everything? Have I left anything undone in this life? With that question, the voice within me roared to life, saying, yes, you have. You're called to ministry. I don't know if you've ever had that kind of an experience. A powerful, intense experience. You know, sometimes that inner voice can come unbidden, like when you're taking a shower or cutting up cabbage or cleaning windows. Sometimes that inner voice comes as a response to when you're exposed to something or someone, something that cracks you open, like a sunrise or a painting or a piece of music, or your minister doing something unethical. Sometimes someone can crack you open. Someone who has a very different worldview, or who is radically authentic, loud and proud, and engaged with being the change they seek in the world. And suddenly, it's hard to see the world the same way that you used to. Actually, it's hard for you to be in the world the same way you used to. Sometimes that inner voice rises up within us. And the question is, are you open to it? Is your heart, mind, spirit open without expectation to what you hear. You know, I certainly advocate and do myself routine times of meditation, prayer, ritual, contemplative correspondence or writing to open that space, to practice opening that space within me for those times when that voice might rise up about little things and big. I think that's a useful tool to be ready for that. And I don't know that it matters so much. Each of us may have a different belief about what that inner voice is. We might think it's our unconscious, or our connection with the universe, or spirit, or soul, or our deepest selves, or the divine, or God, or goddess. I'm not sure that it matters what we think it is. We each believe something different. But what I believe is it's important for us to listen. And to notice what we do when we hear it, how we respond or react. Are you surprised, scared, overwhelmed, dismissive? Do you tense up? Do you pull back? Do you clench your jaw? How is that inner voice embodied within you? Do you find it centered somewhere within you? In your stomach, or your head, or your neck, or your back? When the seeds of change came to me about my ministry, I felt surprised, anxious, overwhelmed, resistant, as well as joyful, ready, and willing, all at the same time. I felt all of it in my head. And my thoughts raced from, no, I can't, to yes, I must, all at the same time. With all these paradoxical feelings and thoughts, I was mentally and spiritually troubled and jumbled. I would say less reflective and more reactive. I went through a dark night of the soul that I couldn't control. My connection to my habitual life seemed far, far away. Was that good or bad? I was unable at the time to make any kind of judgment. To say I was a little surprised by what happened would be a vast understatement. Surprise, sort of characteristic of that inner voice coming to the surface and how we respond to it. Unitarian Universalist minister Reverend Karen Herring invites us to consider such a surprise, like when we hear that inner voice, in a particular way. She says, if you notice constriction or repulsion or attraction to a surprise, it isn't good or bad. It's just an observation. Imagine your observed response as if it were a package you've been given, and that you're setting it aside for a moment. You can go back to it and open it up, actually feeling and thinking more about it later. But pause to observe without judgment for a few moments. You could experiment with curiosity and simply explore the surprise instead. You might ask yourself, what does this surprise involve that you didn't notice or know right away? What are some choices it offers, including some that might seem quite absurd? What do you learn by naming those options side by side? What might your next response, one that perhaps has been lying in wait, ready to emerge given the chance? How do you evaluate the calling from the seeds of change within you? How do you decide whether to say yes or no to the invitation to break open the seed and let it grow, bloom, and blossom in you and in your life? I can speak for myself and tell you that my call to ministry has been fulfilling in more ways than I can count. But it hasn't always been easy, nor has it been without cost. The largest cost was my habitual, routine life. But it's been worth it. I feel more authentically engaged with who I am and who I am becoming. And I'm more willing to listen, evaluate, and respond to that inner voice within me. But I will tell you this, I don't always say yes to that inner voice. But I do listen when it rises up, knowing that it offers wisdom, opportunities, sometimes direction that can help me. It helped me be radically myself, loud and proud as I embody the change I seek in the world. But it doesn't offer habit. And while I sometimes miss being a creature of habit, I wouldn't change my transformed life with all its novelty and intersections and diversity and interesting, different, wonderful people like yourselves. And so today and every day, I listen for the next seeds of change that will bubble up and call to me. My friends, there are seeds like that inside of all of you. And I invite you, maybe I encourage you to listen to the seeds of possibility that rise up in that inner voice inside you. Listen to what it offers. Invite it into your life with curiosity. Let yourself explore where it might take you. And be open to some surprises, even if it means some things are going to change.